Hello and welcome. So I am going to start a new series that I am calling Literary Apothecary. And the idea here is if you're looking for a specific brew of certain kinds of books, I am going to share my recommendations in that vein. So for today, I am going to share cozy mysteries that I have read and enjoyed, with the idea that if next time you're kind of in the mood for a cozy mystery, you will have a list of books to possibly try. So as the chemist who is making these cozy mystery recommendations, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page as far as the ingredients as to what makes up a cozy mystery. So there are some very cute cozy mysteries that are formulaic. I have enjoyed them. In the Company of Witches is one, the Apple Cider Slang is another. So they just really feel like they follow a formula, and you are able to kind of figure out what's going on pretty quickly. My goal here is, other than I think one recommendation, and I'll share why, I'm sort of avoiding that traditional cutesy cozy mystery. You know what I'm talking about. I'll pop up some images here of just those really cute, they've got adorable covers, but I'm looking for a little bit more depth here, but keeping the coziness at the forefront. And then secondly, you also need to make sure as you are entering a mystery series whether you need to start in a specific order or whether you can read them out of order. And so I will share that as well, because I have chosen some that are a series and some that you should be able to pick and choose. First, I'm going to start with that formulaic cozy mystery, and that is the Magical Bookshop Mystery Series by Amanda Flower. The first one is Crime and Poetry. I heard about this from Keisha at A Book Like You, and again, when I saw it, I was like, oh, it's one of those cute cozy mysteries. Not always my cup of tea, but I couldn't resist because I love fantasy, and so to have it be like a magical bookshop, the cover is also adorable. It's got the tree and the cat. Anyway, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just try it. I have been pretty ruthless this year about DNFing, and I thought if I'm not into it, I'm just gonna DNF it. I loved this book, and I'm not a big series follower. Like, a lot of times I'll read the first one and think, okay, I know what that's about. But I am totally into reading the second and continuing books in this series. So one of the reasons why I love it so much is there are literature references in the book. So in this book, we are focused on Emily Dickinson and her poetry and meanings behind that. So Amanda Flower takes a very well-known author, and then within the bookshop setting that's magical, pulls out that one specific author, and then they are highlighted throughout the book. In addition, I loved the mystery. I will say I had figured out who the perpetrator was on some level, but didn't really understand the connection. So it's not, you're not at the end like, whoa, totally mind blown. At least I wasn't in this one. But it was engaging. I love the relationship between our main character, Violet, who comes rushing back home to her grandmother, Daisy. Their relationship, so the grandmother relationship, was wonderful. The townspeople, there was history, there was a new mystery. There just was a lot packed into this little book. And I enjoyed it. It was a fun ride. It wasn't too gruesome. There wasn't any spice or anything. There wasn't any bad language. I loved it so much and will absolutely be continuing it. And so I would recommend, if you're okay with a little bit of magical realism that's sprinkled in there, it's not like heavy with the fantasy, but there's a little bit of unexplainable things going on, and you want to get into a small village life and just get to know people in this town, and it's just adorable and a fun ride. So Elizabeth Peters is a pseudonym for the woman who wrote the Amelia Peabody series. It is a juxtaposition of her kids' names, and she's brilliant. This woman wrote books for about 50 years. She graduated with her PhD in Egyptology, I think, in the early 1900s. And of course, at that time, there wasn't a big role for women in that career field of, archaeology and studying Egypt. And so she became a writer, and she wrote a lot of different books until she hit upon what I think is probably her most well-known series, which is Amelia Peabody. And she started to write that series. The reason why I'm holding this book up in front of it is because Tomb of the Golden Bird is actually the 20th book in the series. And the Amelia Peabody series is one that you should follow the order of the series. And so start with the crocodile and the sandbank, and if you're interested, then just continue through all of them. There actually was one that was published posthumously. I really do love Amelia. I love the hot Egyptian setting. It's just a perfect summer mystery read. I also love that Elizabeth Peters is so educated within this world that she is writing about, and just has so much knowledge on what actually occurred, and then has written it in this historical fiction setting. If you're interested in a great summer mystery read where you've got that hot Egyptian setting, you have a knowledgeable writer who is intimately familiar with Egyptology and the history of Egypt, then this is the perfect book for you to pick up. It's very wholesome. There's not, I don't think, bad language. There's not any spice. And so it is a book that I would recommend starting Crocodile in the Sandbank with and seeing if you want to continue in the series. Next, I have Rhys Bowen's A Constable Evans Mystery. The first one is Evans Above. I do think because the setting is this Welsh village and you are getting to know the village people, that continuing through the series in order is important, because character arcs change, characters connect up and develop relationships. There was one in this where at the end it really seemed like they were going to be developing a relationship as we continue through the series. If you want to get immersed in this Welsh village life with this mountain that is overlooking and engulfing kind of the village and what it's like to be living in a tourist city, then this would be a great book to pick up. I know Rhys Bowen is probably more well known for her historical fiction, but the mystery series is really great. It's not as cute as The Magical Bookshop, and it's certainly not as historically accurate and knowledgeable as Elizabeth Peters' works, but if you want that Welsh village mountain tourist life and to have a pretty good mystery, I think you're kind of led along different paths, and so it's not easy to figure out who it is. It's a great mystery to just read if you just want to try a standalone without feeling like you need to continue. The Evans Above book is a great one to choose. I would be remiss doing cozy mystery recommendations without talking about Aunt Dimity. So Aunt Dimity is written by Nancy Atherton. This is such an interesting setup for a book. But basically, Aunt Dimity, who is mentioned in as the title of all of the books, is actually deceased. So at the beginning of this book, Laurie Shepherd, who has grown up hearing her mother tell her stories about Aunt Dimity, receives word from a law firm that she is actually the recipient of Aunt Dimity's estate as she has passed away. And the requirement for her inheritance is that she at least goes and visits this English cottage and reads these letters that her mother and Aunt Dimity have written over the years. And so this introduces us to Laurie, but more importantly to Aunt Dimity. So I did read this book first, and I do think it's important to read this first. And I think there are conflicting opinions on whether you should follow the story exactly as the books are in publication order, or whether you can jump around. I have jumped around, and it has not been an issue. In fact, the last one that I read, Laurie Shepherd character was not even a part of it. It was just Aunt Dimity knowing people and having a relationship with people, and that was what that story was about. And so I actually have found 2 books in Little Free Libraries that I'm going to read out of order. So some of the books have Laurie Shepherd in them, but then there are other books that only have Aunt Dimity. And so in my opinion, you can kind of pick these up and read them as you find them. I do, again, think that starting with this and understanding the origin story of Aunt Dimity is important, but for what I've read, I haven't felt like I'm lost in reading these in whatever order they end up coming to me. So next, I have Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Q. Sutanto. This is very cozy. It is humorous, and I also feel like the denouement of figuring out what had happened and how it all wrapped up was not something that I saw coming. So I might just be naive, but when I got to the end, I was like, oh, wow, that's how she did that. So in this, we are following, obviously, Vera Wong. She is an Asian mother. She has a bit of an estranged relationship with her son because he's younger and he has different ideas of what he wants for his life. And so she's doing a little bit of pressuring and a little bit of being nosy. And I think it irritates him a bit. She's widowed, she's on her own, and so she's a little bit lonely, and she runs a tea shop outside of San Francisco. One morning, she gets up and she goes downstairs, and there is a dead man in her tea shop. And she then decides that she is going to figure out who did it. And she goes through clues, and she's reaching out to people that knew this dead man and gets to know them. And she builds this little community of people who all knew him as she is trying to figure out who murdered him. And again, it's cute, it's funny. My understanding is that Jessie Sutanto will be writing a second book with Vera Wong as the detective. So we'll see, but it's standalone. You could just pick this up and read it. And again, it is just a funny romp. Next, I have The Tale of Hilltop Farm by Susan Wittig Albert. She has written some other series. This one is Beatrix Potter is the main character. So you get a little bit of a biography of Beatrix Potter and how she ended up leaving her parents, who were notoriously overbearing, and her heart is broken. If you read the biography, it very much follows true to what happened in her life, and she leaves her parents' home and buys this farm, which is the genesis of the Peter Rabbit stories, to be out in the countryside on this farm. And it's her coming into contact with village people who don't understand why a city woman would be buying a farm, and how people feel put out about it. She's pulled the rug out of other farmers in the area who wanted to buy it. And so you have all of that, which I'm sure, has some roots in reality. But there is also a murder mystery that happens. So Beatrix Potter as a main character just makes this cozy in general. And it is nice to see how she is portrayed. You kind of get an understanding of her personality and decision making, but again, you're also unpacking this murder and trying to figure out who it is and who is the killer. So I loved this. This actually is part of a series. You do need to read it because, again, with the villagers, we're developing relationships, we're interacting, and things are changing as you move forward in the story. One thing also that I loved about this is, true to that Beatrix Potter theme, there are animals in here who communicate amongst each other. And so you get their perspective, which can feel a little odd, I think. But for me, I loved it and just thought it added to the character. And again, really stayed within that Beatrix Potter theming. If you've seen the movie with Renee Zellweger, this is a really great complement to that, and something that I think would be fun to read in warmer months, in the spring even, as there's a lot of farm life discussion. I mention this one a lot, but this is the Shady Hollow Murder Mystery Series. by Juno Black. So Juno Black is actually two women, Jocelyn Cole and Sharon Nagel, who just write under this pen name. This is a 5-book series. The latest book has actually just come out. And in this we have anthropomorphized animals. So different than in here where the animals are animals, we just know what they're thinking and they're able to communicate with each other. These are actually animals that live in a village, that have jobs. They are just like people, except they're different animals. And we kind of settle into the animalistic traits. So the fox is actually a journalist and is always trying to figure things out, and you have the big bear who's a police officer. You have a beaver who runs, I think, the paper mill. So you have these animals have specific characteristics that are similar to what their true natures are, but they are anthropomorphized and they act like people. And I love the coziness of this. There's not a lot of setting exploration. So they obviously live in a village and there is surrounding areas. So you do get a map of the town. You also get a cast of characters so that you can really kind of track like what's going on, you know, and who is who in here. In here it's more about the animals and the village life and just kind of your daily going to the coffee shop to get your coffee in the morning, the newspaper journalist going to her desk, the police officer in that kind of sheriff jail setting. So that's what you get in this. But it's cute, and again, I might just be naive, but they're not all super predictable as far as who the perpetrator is. So if that's something that you're looking for, I would recommend picking this up. There is also a short Christmas story and also a short Halloween story that are on Kindle. So you could also, again, just see if it's something that you're interested in, read one of those little novellas at Halloween or Christmas. But I will say, the development of the characters in this, because it's thicker, you really do get more connected to them. This is also a series that I would not recommend skipping around in, that you really want to follow those villagers and their life, and so this will be something that you will want to read in order. Okay, and next we have A Quiet Life in the Country by T.E. Kinsey. I've mentioned this recently as my co-host for the Cozy Reader Book Club at Jen's Reading Life. Recommended this as her favorite mystery series, and so I went ahead and grabbed the first book in the series. This is a Lady Hardcastle mystery, and in this we follow Lady Hardcastle and her lady's maid Flo, who have left London and have moved into the country. As soon as they get there, basically they're going for a walk and they find a body of someone who is hanging from a tree. You can see the rope. The cover really does a great job of pulling in all of the pieces of this mystery. I think the main reason why I like this is because I am so intrigued with Lady Hardcastle and her lady maid Flo's history. So Lady Hardcastle is a widow. Her husband was killed in China, and then she and Flo had to go on the lam for like a year. They ended up in India. She's always referring to making it sound like she has this, you know, super secret spy history in her background. And so I think that's really what intrigues me the most about this. Their friendship is lovely. It's intriguing in some ways, but lovely. And that part of it is what would make me want to continue through the series. So the characters in this, I think, are very black and white. So they're either likable or they're not likable. And you make that decision based on what Lady Hardcastle and Flo think. So they're very much able to kind of intuit who is legitimate and credible and really are who they say they are, and who are duplicitous and not likable characters. And so I think the sort of really likable characters and not likable characters does kind of give you the idea of who might have done it in the whodunits. The shady characters remain shady, and the upstanding characters remain upstanding, at least in the first one. So I was able to tell pretty early on what was going on and who had committed the murder. There are actually a couple mysteries inside of here, so that makes it great. One of them was this missing jewel that was reminiscent for me of The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins a little bit. Also, T.E. Kinsey is a male, and he writes Lady Hardcastle, who is a female. And so sometimes when a male writes a female character or vice versa, you can't tell. But I did feel like I could tell that they were very masculine. But if you're looking for a solid mystery set in this beautiful English country setting, you also like that village slice of life, the daily, like walking to the butcher to get meat, walking to the pub. They talk about cricket in here. There is the upstairs, downstairs kind of Downton Abbey-esque feel within this. And so if you're looking for that, this is a great book to pick up. And again, one that you would, I think, be encouraged to continue the series in order. I have The Secret Book and Scone Society by Ellery Adams. You've got this bookstore setting. Our main character, Nora, runs a store called the Miracle Bookstore. The setting, I think, is in North Carolina. There is a spring that has this like miracle water that people go to for healing. Well, in addition to tourists coming for that healing, you also have the townspeople who have sort of come there because they have issues in their life and they are also looking for healing. Nora is one of them. And she has really been standoffish for years, not really connecting with anyone. There's also a ginger house bakery in this Miracle Springs town. And so Nora ends up befriending some other women in the town, and they are a bit eccentric. They're other business owners. They each have a story, and the way this starts is they agree to start this club, this society, because someone that is a tourist that has come has been found dead, and the police officer declares it a suicide, and these women know that it was not that. And so they bind together and form this society, and they start following clues to try to figure out why this man ended up dead and how everything is all related in it. This is another book, I think, where the characters are very black and white. So you really know who the bad guys are and who the good guys are. It's just a matter of figuring out how they're all related, who maybe is the worst of the bunch, and why they are doing what they're doing, right? So we're not sure what's going on, but there's something going on, and why. And it's also very much a character-driven mystery where we are learning about each of these women. In order for them to form this society, they need to form trust, and they agree that they will each tell their story. And this is the last one that I've chosen to share because while it is a cozy mystery, because of the setting, because of the bookstore, the bakery, that village life, the Miracle Springs, the discussion about food and all of that, these women have very real and vulnerable and hard stories that they're sharing. There's a lot of pain there. And so if you're a little bit concerned about trigger warnings, this might be one to kind of maybe not choose. If you are comfortable with kind of getting in there and getting messy with your characters and really seeing that real life and real situations that people go through, then this is a great one to pick up because it really is about the characters more than, say, the mystery. This is part of a series, and because I'm not really good at series, I'm really not. I read a different one in the series before I read the first one, and I didn't think there was that much that was important that I was missing out on. I think some of the women's stories that get alluded to in here really get unpacked more as we continue on, because in the fourth one that I read, I really understood what the background and history was for Nora, that in here it's only sort of mentioned slightly. So all of that to say, it's pretty gritty, but I think worth your time if all of that kind of sounds like something you would be interested in reading. All right, well, thank you so much for watching this video. Please let me know if you have read any of these cozy mysteries or if there are any that seem intriguing to you. I would love to hear if you do read them and try them. If you have your own cozy mystery suggestions, please feel free to leave those down below. And if you have any ideas for genres or types to talk about in my Literary Apothecary series, please feel free to leave those ideas down below. Until next time.